Mike McDaniel, class of 1966, Miami, Edison. Enlisted in the Air Force in 1967, stationed in Castle Air Force Base, SAC, in California. Spent 3 years there, really enjoyed it, but decided to volunteer for Vietnam. Received orders for Cam Bay, and all of a sudden was canceled, and they handed me another set of orders for a radar site in Iceland. Spent my last year in Iceland and discharged in New Jersey, headed back to California, and been there my whole adult life. But I really enjoyed my time in the Air Force.
All right, Mike, great job. Appreciate it for one veteran to another. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
All right.
John.
Your name?
Hi, I'm Jim Craven, class of 1966. I served in the U.S. Army from 1970 to 1994. Started out in the infantry as a second lieutenant, airborne ranger. Then later on, branch transferred to the military police. Assignments in Europe, Germany a couple of times, 6 years. 2 great years in the Middle East. Worked in the embassy in Amman, Jordan. Made some trips overseas, obviously, Somalia, Operation Restore Hope was kind of interesting. Then I did mostly MP operations stuff, headquarters, U.S. Army Europe, Westcom, 3 tough years in Hawaii at Westcom, MP operations, and then over the years that culminated in at McDaniel Air Force Base, Chief MP Operations, Officer of the Provost Marshal for Central Command. You know, the area of operation, Iraq, Afghanistan, all the good places. So, great career, absolutely loved it. 2 children, they loved the military, it was good for them. And they have the urge to travel from the times that we went around the world. So it was just absolutely a super time. It was a great career. I'm very proud of it, and always will be. And real thankful for the guys today. So thank you.
Well, Jim, thank you very much for one veteran to another. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, go ahead. What's your name?
Ray Powell.
And what class
and
were you?
I was in Miami Edison, class of 1966.
Okay. And Ray, you
joined
were
the Marine Corps in 1968. Served through 70. Did my time in basic training in Paris Island. First infantry training, we went down to North Carolina. Second infantry training we did out in Camp Pendleton, and then from there we shipped overseas, and we did 13 months in Pearl of the Orient, better known as Vietnam. And they gave this tall, skinny guys the big guns, so I carried a M60 machine gun for the time I was over there.
And you said what year did you get out?
Got out in 1970.
All right. Well, Ray, that's really great. Thanks for your service. I appreciate it. One veteran to another.
Very good. Semper Fi.
Hi, I'm Steve Griffin, class of 1966. I went in the Air Force in 1968, became a B-52 gunner, flew 90-something combat missions in North Vietnam, South Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. I was part of the 10-day war, where on one of our flights, SAMs came up, and we ended up banking so hard that we lost 20,000 feet. Recovered just in time not to have to bail out. I retired as the wing gunner at Loring Air Force Base, Maine. Had a great time in the service. a few harrowing moments in the airplane, but all in all, it was a good life.
All right, well, from one veteran to another, Steve, thank you for your service.
All right, John.
Hey, my name's Sal Compagner, class of 1966. I enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1968. I went 14 months of AIT. I became a specialist 5th class. Went to Vietnam for my tour of duty, 365 days. I did electronics. I was a communications 31L20 technician. Also a section chief in Vietnam. I was in about 20 miles from Saigon. 53rd Signal Battalion, 2nd Field Forces. After that, I went back. I was in Fort Gordon, Georgia for all my AIT and basic, and then I went to Vietnam for the year, and then back to Fort Gordon, Georgia to finish up my last 8 months in the service. Did 3 years. Glad I did it.
Okay, from one veteran to another, I want to thank you for your service, Sal.
Thank you, John.
Hua. What's your name?
Well, I'm Greg Fotus, and I served in the Marine Corps from 1966 through 1972. I graduated from Miami Edison in June of '66, and I was in Parris Island in July of '66. Came back for about 30 days of leave, and then went out to Camp Pendleton for escape and evasion for about 3.5 weeks, and ended up in country around the 17th of December of 1966. Spent 12 months and 27 days with India Company, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. I was a mortarman. My MOS was 0341. And when I went over, I was the youngest guy in the company, and I think when I got back in January of '68, I missed the Tet Offensive by about 2 weeks. You know, that was probably one of the most memorable things. I went down to Guantanamo Bay, served a colonel on a launch for about 6 months, and got out, and then I was in the reserves for the next 4 years. So.
Well, Greg, that was great. Thank you very much for your service from one veteran to another.
All right, thanks, John.
All right. Ralph, go ahead and give me your name.
My name's Ralph Sanabria,
Okay, and Ralph, what class were you for Miami Edison?
1966.
1966, and you are a veteran of the United States Air Force, correct?
Yes, I was.
And what year did you join the Air Force?
I joined the Air Force 1966, right out of high school.
Right out of high school, okay. And where did you do your basic training at?
Lackland Air Force Base,
And that's in Texas, correct?
Texas.
And do you remember how long your basic training?
6 weeks of basic training, and after basic training, I went to Abilene, Texas.
Okay.
I spent 2 years in Abilene, and I was on the job training there, armed heavy equipment, tractors and forklifts and all the heavy equipment. then I decided that was too heavy for me, and I went to general cars, and that was about it. And that's where I've been all my life, working around cars.
So were you stationed in Texas your entire time, or did you
No,
go to any other bases?
I went to Texas for 2 years, and I ended up, they told me there was an opening in Puerto Rico at Ramey Air Force Base.
Okay.
And I went there for 2 years, and from there they sent me to Homestead Air Force Base to do some training, get the fleet. That's back in when SAC broke up. And so they call them satellite missions. So we had one, our was 72nd Airborne, actually Air Force Bomb Wing. We went to Homestead, they split it up to Homestead and then to Tampa. And from there, I went Homestead for about a month in TDY. I went back to Texas. Then they told me that I could go to Tampa and do the same thing, painting all their automobiles, or the cars, whatever they needed in the fleet. And then I could go home on vacation and take whatever time, but I worked 24 hours. I was done in 2 weeks, and I got 3 weeks off from my time. And he told me, the colonel looked at me and said, "You're done?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Your wife's having a baby?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, take the rest of the time off, and I'll sign you on leave. After your 3 weeks, you'll have another extra week."
Wow.
Said, okay.
Sometimes it works out pretty good like that, huh?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I was fortunate. My number never came up, but I was there. You never know when your numbers are up.
That's for sure. So how many years total time did you spend in the Air Force?
4 years.
4 years. And when you got out?
I went into paint and body shop, which I had. That's what I did in the service. And that's what I've done all my life, paint and body shop. I worked, my last job was 15 years at LP Evans Mercedes in Miami.
Well, Ralph, I want to thank you for your service as a Edison vet, and appreciate what you do for the veterans and the things that you try to do for the organization. So again, thanks very much.
Well,
Hang on there, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Chuck Reynolds. I'm a 1966 graduate of Edison Senior High School, and I spent my career starting in 1968 with the Miami Police Department. Started off as a road patrolman for the first 3 or 4 years. Made detective and worked in burglary and an undercover fencing operation until I was promoted to sergeant in 1975, and then I worked in homicide from 75 to 78, special investigations 78 to 80, internal affairs from 80 to 86. I was promoted again in 83 to lieutenant, and after 1986, from then to 1989, I was detached over to the United States Attorney's Office to work on the now infamous Miami River Cops case. In 1989, I came back and was the robbery commander for a year, and I went back to homicide and spent 2 more years in homicide. While I was in homicide, they sent me to the FBI National Academy, and when I came back in 1991, they promoted me to major. I was in charge of the Special Investigation Section, which includes narcotics, bomb squad, organized crime, and money laundering. So that was the periods of time I spent in my various assignments while I was with the department. In 1993, I retired from the Miami Police Department and was hired by the Key Biscayne Police Department as their deputy chief. I helped them set up a brand new department at that time. I was there for 1 year, and then I was hired by the Dade County State Attorney's Office as the chief investigator when Janet Reno left, and I stayed there until 2005, 11 years as the chief investigator, and retired in 2005 for good.
Well, Chuck, there was one thing I think you did that you didn't mention was that you organized a police element to go up to New York after 9/11.
During my tenure with the Dade County State Attorney's Office, myself and the president of the Dade County Association of Chiefs of Police organized a 40-man contingent of police officers from all over Dade County. Went up to New York City right after 9/11, and as I had told you earlier, one of the most satisfying experiences of my whole career was coming through the Holland Tunnel onto the West Side Highway, which is on the west side of Manhattan near Ground Zero, and finding that the streets of New York City were lined with residents holding flags and signs and saying things like, "Here comes the cavalry," and you know, "Thank God you're here," and just broke my heart.
Well, Chuck, I want to thank you very much for your service as a veteran to another. I appreciate your service and what you've done for this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivor.
Yeah, my name's John Carpenter, class of 1966. Joined the United States Army in 1978, served for 34 years. I started out as a tank gunner, went to officer school, became a tank platoon leader, got out of the active Army, joined the Army Reserve in the infantry, went to airborne school at age 43. Then I went to the dark side, went to military intelligence, where I spent the majority of the rest of my years in the service. After 9/11, I went to Iraq 6 times for a total of 2.5 years on the ground between 2003 and 2007. Then I was sent to Colombia, South America, to work with the Call Mill, or the Colombian military. Engaged in several operations. I was with the Mill Group inside the embassy in Bogota, Colombia, but also went to the field several times. I got out of the Army in 2008, was recalled as a retiree recall in June of 2010, was sent to Afghanistan, where I spent 2 years, 9 months, and 28 days straight, primarily in Regional Command South in Kandahar, near Tarnak Farms, where Osama bin Laden originally stood up Al-Qaeda. And then my last 9 months was in RC East in Bagram, and travel all around there working with different allies. You know, did 53 air missions out to the Pakistani and Iranian borders. I enjoyed my time in service. I ended up with 3 Bronze Stars. Love being in the military, miss being out every day. Thank you.